In this review, we're going to compare two budget Rebel series cameras, the Canon Rebel T5, also known as the 1200D, and the Rebel T7, also known as the 2000D. We're going to discuss both the good and the bad things about these cameras, and they'll help you figure out which you should buy, if any. First things first, let's have a look at the physical size of these two cameras. The T5 measures 129.6 by 99.7 by 77.9mm, or 5.1 by 3.93 by 3.07 inches, and weighs in at 480 grams, or 16.93 ounces. The T7 measures 129 by 101.3 by 77.6mm, or 5.08 by 3.99 by 3.06 inches, and weighs 475 grams, or 16.76 ounces. Neither of these cameras are particularly big, but then again they are part of the budget Rebel series. In terms of build quality, they're both relatively nice, and you get the usual polycarbonate resin with glass fiber type body. I really like the Canon camera bodies, as even at these lower prices, they're still nice to hold or even look at. Okay, now let's talk image quality. So the lens is obviously a huge part of image quality, but since I don't know which lens you'll use with these, let's discuss what the cameras themselves actually contribute. So they both have APS-C sensors, which are cropped. The 1200D has an 18 megapixel sensor, which measures 22.3 by 14.9mm, while the 2000D has a 24.1 megapixel sensor of the same size. Theoretically, the more megapixels you have, the better, but not always. You'd probably have to zoom in quite a bit on the photos produced by these cameras in order to see the differences. What about processors? The 1200D has a Digic 4, while the 2000D has a Digic 4 Plus. The higher the number, the better, as each processor introduced different improvements to the cameras over the years. For example, the Digic 4 Plus introduced higher resolution images, and it is also faster than previous generations. Speaking of speed, what if you want to capture fast-moving subjects? The maximum shutter speed of both cameras is 1/4000th of a second, which is pretty good. Okay, what if the subject moves really fast and you want to capture multiple images in the hopes of getting the perfect one? In that case, you'd be shooting in continuous mode. When in this mode, the camera takes multiple photos per second in the hopes that you capture the exact right amount. In this mode, both cameras capture 3 frames per second, which isn't great, but it's something. Both of these cameras are entry level, so around 3 frames a second is to be expected. If you want a lot more than that, you'll have to pay for it. Right, so we've seen in the previous chapter that both of these cameras can take decent photos. What about video? So the Digic 4 generation did not allow 1080p at 60 fps, which means that both of these cameras can shoot at 120p at 30 fps and 720p at 60 fps. If you want to shoot slow motion video in 1080p, neither of these cameras will be suitable. If you really need that in a similar-ish price range, you'll want to have a look at something like the Canon 77D. What about autofocus? Do they have dual pixel AF? Nope, neither of them does. They do still have autofocus and it's decent, but not quite as good as dual pixel AF, unfortunately. If you want that, you'll have to pay quite a bit more for that as well. In terms of AF points, both cameras have 9, which is not a lot, especially compared to newer cameras. Finally, do they have image stabilization? Nope, that's not something that you'll find in cameras at this price range, unfortunately. You can get a lens with IS though, like the Canon 18-55mm kit lens. I've reviewed the 77D camera and the kit lens on my channel, link down below or click the card in the top right corner. So are either of these cameras any good for vlogging? Well, not really, as the LCD screens on the back are not movable. You can still vlog with them of course, but you can't really see yourself whilst you do it. Also, because they both have cropped sensors, that means the image is a bit more zoomed in compared to a full frame sensor, so a lot of lenses will not work when vlogging. They will physically produce images of course, but most lenses will be so zoomed in that you won't be able to really use the footage. You can have a look at the Canon 18-55mm kit lens, especially if it has IS in the name. the lens itself can be quite wide when zoomed out, which will make it easier to fit yourself into frame. The IS, which stands for image stabilization, will also allow you to get less shaky footage, which is always a plus. You could use something like the Canon 24mm pancake lens, but it does not have IS, so shaky handheld footage is inevitable. I've reviewed both of these lenses, by the way. You can find links down below, or you can click the card in the top right corner. What if you don't want to hold the camera in your hand and you just want to make content with it on a tripod? Yeah, both of these cameras will work well for that. In fact, if you're going to sit down, or at least have the camera on a tripod, I'd recommend having a look at the Canon 50mm f1.4 or f1.8 lens, which will allow in a lot more light, and they will also give you a really nice blurry background. That will make your videos look a lot more professional. Neither of these cameras has dual pixel AF though, so when using lenses like these wide open at f1.4 or f1.8, bear in mind that it is possible the camera might struggle a bit to keep you in focus. By the way, if you're finding this video to be helpful, don't forget to leave a like. Okay, so these cameras can do quite a bit. What lenses are they compatible with? Both of these cameras have EF/EFS mounts, which means that they can use both EF and EFS lenses. This makes up by far the majority of Canon lenses, so you have quite a few to choose from. Are these cameras easy to control? Yeah, they both have the familiar Canon button layout on the back, which makes it easy to navigate menus when needed. What about storage? Does either of these cameras have dual SD card slots? Nope. Since both of these cameras are fairly low priced, they only have one SD card slot. In more professional and thus more expensive cameras, you can sometimes find dual SD card slots, which allow you to back up your photos and videos in real time. This is super useful if you're doing professional gigs and don't want to risk losing data. What about connectivity? While the 1200D does not have any wireless options, the 2000D has both Wi-Fi and NFC. I personally don't use these sorts of features as I enjoy the process of taking the SD card out and popping it into my laptop, but you do have the option. Okay, so these cameras are fairly versatile. How do they fare in terms of battery life? They both use the LP-E10 battery, and each is rated for around 500 photos before they run out of juice. This applies to new batteries though, so bear in mind that if you're buying these second-hand, which you very likely are, that may be an issue. How about longevity? How long will these cameras last? Both of them have a maximum number of shutter clicks set at around 100,000. What this means is that you can take 100,000 photos with them before the shutter theoretically fails. Cameras are mechanical in nature, so because of that, those mechanisms can only function a certain number of times before they fail. If you take 10 photos per day on average, it should theoretically take you 27 years before you exceed 100,000, so you should be good. Other components of these cameras will likely fail before that. If you're buying these cameras second-hand, which is likely, always make sure to find out how many photos they've already taken. And now, the conclusion. Should you buy the 1200D or the 2000D? So both of these cameras are decent and can be used in a myriad of scenarios, from portraits and landscapes to product and street photography. Even though they are quite similar, I'd say you should probably just get the 2000D. It has a slightly newer processor, can take higher resolution images, and the AF is most likely a tiny bit better as well. If you've already learned a bit about photography and videography, and you'd like to graduate to something more mid-range, feel free to have a look at the camera review playlist on my channel. You can find links down below or click the card in the top right corner. I've reviewed all sorts of cameras from the Canon 77D and 7D Mark II to the Canon R and Canon R5. Do you have any questions? Feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll do my best to get back to you. If you'd like to purchase any of the items I've mentioned in this video or see how much they cost in your country, I have a link down below where you can view them. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe and hit that bell, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.